Ready? Okay. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Joe Mantua. I'm the Deputy General Manager for Operations at WSSC, and I'd just like to say a few words before I turn it over to our Project Manager, Crystal Whedon. First of all, let me express my thanks and thanks on behalf of WSSC for you being here and taking the time to meet with us. This project, as everyone involved knows, has been going on for quite a long time, and we're very anxious to move this forward, as I'm sure the residents of this neighborhood are as well. So we wanted to come out this evening, provide you with an update, give you some insights to some of the work we've been doing, as well as some of the feedback from meetings we've had with Mayor and some of our other elected officials from Montgomery County. Also, we'd like to make the offer to those who are more comfortable to, if you would prefer to sit down and have a one-on-one meeting with our staff, we'd be happy to do that, to answer questions directly and get into more detail. So again, thank you. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. We are very committed to trying to get a process moving forward where we can get this project finally designed and moving forward in construction. So with that, I will again say thanks and turn it over to Crystal, who's going to give you all the details, and we'll be happy to take questions once we complete the presentation. And so again, thank you for being here. Crystal?
All right, hello everyone. We are meeting here again to talk about the Takoma Park Water and Sewer Main Replacement Project being done by WSSC. I am Crystal Whedon. I am the project manager from WSSC. And with me today, I have Joe Mantua. He's our Deputy General Manager for Operations. Monica Johnson couldn't be here today. Karen Riley, she's the Director of our Intergovernmental Relations Office. She's here. And Brandon Stewart is your Customer Advocate. He's here today as well to help answer questions. And then from our design consultant, Wilson T. Ballard, we have John Martin and Matt DeWeese. And of course, Daryl is here from the city of Takoma Park. So the agenda for today, I'm going to just do an overview of the project. Maybe there are some new faces in here who haven't been able to come to any of the presentations, so I'll do a quick overview. And then I'll get into our plan as WSSC to divide the project into two different phases. So phase one will consist of all the properties for which we've already determined the water and sewer main alignments for rehabilitation. And phase two encompasses all of the addresses for which we have not yet finalized the alignment. So I'll go over each of the phases, the proposed alignments, and the timelines for each of them. All right, so an overview. This project consists of both the south section and the north section. The south section contains homes between Kansas Lane and 5th Avenue, all along Eastern Avenue. Those homes have existing water and sewer mains in the backyard location. And the same is the case for the north section, which encompasses homes between Walnut Avenue and 2nd Avenue. So we're going to be replacing 2,000 feet of small diameter water and sewer mains along these project sections. Just to give you some pictures of the existing sewer mains right now, last year, before the last meeting in July, we conducted a CCTV and took some photos. We found some broken pipe, we found offset joints, and we did another CCTV round and inspection earlier this month, and we found typically the same conditions. There were holes starting to form in the pipes, sections of broken pipe, offset joints, which means that we can't simply use a slip lining method to rehab these sewer mains. We'll have to replace them entirely. And so here are some more pictures of holes in the pipe that are existing now. So phase one. Phase one encompasses the south section, which is from Kansas Lane to 5th Avenue, and it also includes homes from 6601 to 6613 Eastern Avenue. So for the south section, here's an aerial photo of our plan to rehabilitate the water and sewer mains here. We're going to be placing the new water and sewer in the front yard alignment and giving each of the homes new water and sewer services connecting from the backs of the homes, around the sides, and up to the new mains in the roadway or in the front yard alignment. And here's an overlay just showing the typical area where we're planning to place the water and the sewer in the southern section of the project. So the next steps for this alignment to be completed, we'll do the 100% design plans, and then we'll also need to get a right of entry from each of the impacted residents to install the water and the sewer mains and new sewer services and water services on each of the properties. So, pretty simple. For 6601 through 6613 Eastern Avenue, these homeowners elected for the grinder pump small pressure sewer system alignment back in 2015, and then again in 2016. These homeowners will get the new water and sewer installed in the roadway alignment in front of their homes. They'll get new water and sewer services connecting from the back of the homes to the roadway, and then each home will receive a new grinder pump system, except 6601 is going to get a new sewer house connection directly into 2nd Avenue. So this alignment is finalized, and all we need to move forward in the design and construction for this alignment is to get the right of entry signed from each of the impacted homeowners. Yes, so in this picture they'll get new water service connections, new sewer laterals, and the grinder pumps at each of their homes. And WSSC will be paying for a 10-year warranty on top of the 2-year manufacturer warranty for each of these homeowners and their grinder pump systems. However, the homeowner will have to take full maintenance responsibility for the lifetime of the pump after that 12-year warranty period. So our anticipated project timeline for these two sections of the project, we're going to be moving forward immediately with producing the 90% design plans, and then we'll have 1 month for review by WSSC internal reviewers, and we'll also have the City of Takoma Park review the plans as they are the permitting agency. And then by February 2018, we expect to have the bid-ready design complete, as well as all of the homeowner permissions, which includes all the right of entries to install the new water and sewer services at the homes. And by spring 2018, we'll be going through the procurement phase to find our construction contractor, and then by summer 2018, we'll start the construction phase. So this is our plan for those two sections, the southern section and then also the homeowners who are going to be on grinder pumps. Okay, so that's phase 1. Phase 2, that includes homes from 6617 to 6761 Eastern Avenue. So I'll give you a quick update since our last public meeting. At that public meeting, we received requests because at that time, for those addresses listed, we proposed a backyard sewer alignment as a possible alignment for those addresses, but we received lots of requests for environmental impact reviews, tree impact reviews, as well as stormwater impact reviews. And so we produced a hydrology report, and the results of that showed that we did not anticipate a significant impact to the stormwater as it currently exists in Takoma Park and in this section of the project. And then after we did that, we also reviewed the horizontal directional drilling construction method because at the time we were planning to do an open cut construction method, and so we received requests for a trenchless method. So we reviewed using the horizontal directional drilling method. It usually is not used for gravity sewer mains. However, we were able to find a sub-consultant, the design consultant, who is able to complete the design plans for the backyard alignment using the horizontal directional drilling method. So that has happened since our last meeting. We now have horizontal directional drilling as our method for installing the backyard alignment, and we hope that we anticipate being able to save about half the trees along that backyard alignment in that 20-foot easement. And earlier this year, we had a meeting with elected officials and a few concerned residents, people who were concerned about the impacts of the backyard alignment and its environmental impacts. And they requested for additional information on tree impacts, which we now have, and I shared it in my email on Friday, and it's now also on the public website. Sketches by property of the anticipated tree impacts, tree removals, as well as trees that will need to be on a protection plan for 5 years after construction. And then also earlier this year, we received requests for reviewing a front yard gravity sewer alignment. And so over the past few months, we've met with individual homeowners to get an estimate of the feasibility to create a new front yard gravity sewer alignment with new sewer exit points at the front of each home. We also reviewed the possibility of doing a front yard gravity alignment while creating new sewer laterals around the sides of the homes. And that was deemed to be infeasible at the end of our alignment study. So that's what we've been doing since our last public meeting. And then now I'll just go to each of the addresses and where we are with the alignments. So from 6617 through 6705, these homeowners voted for the backyard alignment also in 2015. And currently we have received 2 of the 8 easement agreements that we need to move forward with this alignment. As this picture shows, we'd be relocating the water to the front yard, but we'll be keeping the sewer mains in the backyard within a permanent 20-foot easement being granted to WSSC by each homeowner. So. And then farther north, we have 6711 through 6761 Eastern Avenue. Following all of our alignment studies over the past few months, these are the final 3 alignment options for the sewer mains from 6711 to 6761 Eastern Avenue. And we have the displays over there for each of these alignments. So starting farthest away from me is the backyard gravity sewer alignment using horizontal directional drilling, which we confirmed earlier this year is a feasible construction method and will hopefully save us at least half of the tree impacts. And then in the middle, you'll see the front yard pressure sewer alignment with grinder pumps. We are reintroducing that alignment as a possibility. So much like the homeowners from 6601 to 6613 Eastern Avenue, this is an alignment option where we will give you new sewer laterals, new grinder pumps for the sewer mains, and we'll have a new low pressure sewer main in the front roadway of the homes. And then the board that's closest to me is the front yard gravity sewer alignment with new sewer exit points at the front of the home. So each homeowner will be responsible for hiring a private plumbing contractor to come and do a remodel inside of the homes to create a new sewer exit point at the front of the home. And by doing this, we won't have to install laterals, but 15 to 20 feet deep between the sides of the homes. So now this is a feasible alignment to have a front yard gravity sewer alignment. So for details on the different alignments, I do have the handouts. So in the handouts, you'll see just an aerial view of each of the different alignment options. You'll see a plan sketch showing where the existing water and sewer are in the backyard of the home and where we're planning to put the new water and sewer service connections. And then you'll also see a section view of that same type of drawing. And then we also have the requirements, the homeowner requirements for each of these 3 alignments. So for example, if there's a right of entry or if there's an easement agreement that you will have to sign for WSSC to move forward with that alignment, it's mentioned in this handout here. All right, so the next steps. As Joe mentioned, WSSC is offering to do one-on-one meetings with the homeowners. So while you decide, which alignment will be best for your property, we can meet you out at your property and walk each of the alignments for your specific property. And then, I don't know, what are you saying? They want to just meet and talk?
Well, we'd be happy to set up a meeting to answer questions.
Okay, yeah, and Joe is just confirming that his staff is also willing to sit down with you and answer questions regarding any of the alignments as well. Yeah, so if you want to schedule a one-on-one, please just contact me at my email address that's there, crystal.whedon@wsscwater.com. We're also going to be starting immediately on doing an environmental assessment and construction impact report for each of the 3 alignments. And that will later be reviewed by Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection. So we will get a review of that hydrology report that we did before, and then we'll also get a review of any other anticipated impacts for each of these 3 alignments. So here's a timeline for phase 2. So that's all the homeowners 6617 through 6761 Eastern Avenue. We're going to get started on this environmental assessment report, as I mentioned, and then Department of Environmental Protection will take about 1 month to review our documents and give concurrence to our, well, concurrence or rejection of our 3 alignments. We'll see the results of their reports in February. And then in March, we'll have the final alignment vote. Once you have all the information from us, once you finish your one-on-ones with us, once you've gotten feedback from Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection, then you'll be able to make an educated vote for your property. So we'll do that in March. And then by April, we'll be able to move forward and finish the 90% design. Then in 1 month for WSSC review and City of Takoma Park review. And by summer 2018, we hope to have the bid-ready design and all of the homeowner permissions, so the right of entries and the easements. And then we'll move into the construction procurement phase and construction phases. So that's our timeline for phase 2. All right, thank you.
Can you go back a couple slides?
Sure.
To,
Which one?
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk a little bit about the bottom two, that fact that we're going to need 100% agreement on those.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. So for both of the alignments that are in the front yard, we will require concurrence, complete 100% consensus from all of the homeowners in your sewer block in order to move forward with one of these alignment options. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
do you want to explain that, Karen?
Yeah,
It has
do you
to
wanna-
why don't you share with them
Yeah, I think I'm gonna
the issue there?
Absolutely. Again, my name is Karen Riley. I'm the Director of Intergovernmental Relations for WSSC. Before I explain that, I would like to acknowledge and thank Mayor Kate Stewart for coming, Tommy Hayboer from Councilmember Reamer's office. I don't know where you went, Tom. Oh, right in front of Kate. And Julio Saron from Councilmember Hucker's office. So thank you for joining and representing the representative council members for us today. So the issue with the front yard alignments, why we need 100% concurrence from everyone on this who will be impacted by this design and construction project, there will be requirements that your homes have to be worked on as well. And there will be a cost impact, and we're trying to identify and figure out how much that will be. Right now, conservatively, our figures say between about, I think it was $35,000 and $40,000. I'm sorry, $25,000 to $35,000 in order to make structural upgrades and electric upgrades to your homes that would be required in order to have the grinder pumps and the injector pumps. And so we cannot force you to make these upgrades to your home. So we cannot say, okay, the majority of people want the front yard alignment, you voted for a backyard alignment, you still have to come up with $25,000 to upgrade. We can't do that legally, and we just cannot do that. So we also cannot force you to own electric equipment, which is a grinder pump for the front yard pressure sewer with the grinder pumps, and you would need an injector pump for the front yard gravity sewer with the new sewer exit points. So those are pieces of equipment that we legally cannot force you to own and to install into your home. So it's very important to note that when you all are making your decision on how you want your sewer alignment to look, everyone has to concur with the front yard, either one of the front yard positions, just because, again, we can't force you to make any structural changes to your home. Your electric panels need to be upgraded. We cannot force everyone to do that. All right.
Oh yes, also, because this is being recorded, if you do have a
I'd like to
question.
say something though, because
Just one second. I just want to give an announcement to everyone in the audience. If you have questions, please come up to the microphone because it is being recorded and you won't be picked up otherwise. So.
This isn't a
Go ahead.
question. I'm one of the 4 people that's in the room today that met with you in March, and we're frankly blindsided because there was never the intention that the homeowners, when we asked you to look at the front yard option again, it was to find a win-win situation for the WSSC and for the citizens that live in the 17 houses in the 6700 block who do not want to destroy the urban forest behind us and the other environmental impacts. The understanding with Carla Reed, your general manager, and all of the senior management there was we were knowing that the homeowners would not ever agree to pay for this, especially assuming it would be this amount, that we would mutually look for grants to reimburse the homeowners for these costs, and there's not a mention of that. You didn't mention it tonight, and it's not in the report. So since you haven't mentioned it, has the WSSC taken a formal decision that you're not looking at that, you're not interested in looking at it, and you're not interested in working with us to try to find a solution that does not require going in the back?
That's not the case at all. In fact, we do have the general counsel's office and our legal team looking at what we would pay to give you for your easement if we
Not the
were
easement. I'm
able
talking
to do-
about the in-the-house construction.
I know.
The easement, I
If you
understand.
let me finish, the monies we would have allotted for easement payments, we're looking at if we could give that to you in the form of monies to help upgrade your structure. But the conversation surrounding that is not so much, we're not trying to find a win-win. We're trying to abide by the law. Again, we cannot force people to upgrade their home. Even if we paid for it 100%, we can't force anyone to do that.
That's understood, but I think that the information that's been disseminated to people who have not been part of these discussions is not, in fact, what we were discussing. We would never have even asked for these assessments if we knew that we were basically asking our neighbors to come up between $20,000 and $30,000.
But in the course of identifying and evaluating these assessments, that is what the engineers and everyone
From what I
identified.
understand, they came to our house, and we had a very good visit and a good discussion. They came to a number of other people's houses. You didn't come to all 17 houses. There are several houses that were not visited, and so they don't know what this is all about. And
that's why
I think
we're offering to do the
for
one-on-ones.
for a public discussion that we should just have it all there, because one of the things was to mutually find the funding. I mean, one thing I agree with you: you cannot force somebody. You give them a bunch of money and say, do it this way. The original discussion was find out whether it's feasible, because first of all, from the private documents from the Freedom of Information Act, we found out that the in-the-street option for both water and sewer was the first preference of the WSC all along. Okay, that we knew that. We also know that destabilizing the wall on Big Eastern was never a factor, and that was told that was the reason that you have to go so deep in the street that the wall on Big Eastern would collapse. Turns out that's not true either. What we were trying to do was to find out, was there a way? And then the homeowners, they still might not go for it, but it's a deal breaker to say you would have to do this and be responsible for it. We understand the reluctance of the WSSC not to go into the homes and take responsibility, and each house is different. We're not a subdivision, we understand that. But that it would be, so perhaps maybe my house might be $12,000 and somebody else's might be $50,000. But we don't know that on an individual basis. But ultimately, whatever the cost would be, that WSSC, the City of Takoma Park, the government of Montgomery County, and ourselves individually could seek environmental mitigation funds, other funds. We're only talking about 17 houses. We're not talking about the whole city of Takoma Park. So what I am uncomfortable with is that none of this was in the information that's been provided to the public today. So if I were sitting there and had not been part of the discussions, I wouldn't go for that either. I would say no way. Okay, but this is a way, because the backyard is going. threatens an urban forest, and we do not know. The hydrology report had many flaws in it, but I'll go past that. There has been no environmental impact study. There has been nothing on the species that live back there, and it's very rich with wildlife. So that hasn't even been really looked at. It's been talked about the importance of doing it, but it hasn't been done yet. And the environment, yes, water is important, yes, trees are important, but a complete environmental impact study hasn't been done on either one of these. So I'll let that go, but I have one last question. What is the experience of the WSSC in doing hydraulic directional drilling to protect trees?
Just as an FYI, as a reminder, we are going to be completing a comprehensive environmental impact and assessment reports for DEP's review. And as Crystal mentioned, that will start immediately so that we can get that to you all before we take the vote. And that's very important that you all have it before you take the vote. Crystal can talk more about the experience with the HDD since that's construction related.
Yeah, so we've used the method of horizontal directional drilling on many different projects, mostly water projects and pressure sewer projects. However, we only have one example of doing it for a gravity sewer main. Well, as far as you said for saving trees or for reducing tree impacts, it's a well-known method for protecting tree species because you don't impact the root zones by going underneath rather than doing the open trench. Actually, well, yeah, if you want to know more about it or see more about it, I do have a video as part of this presentation too that I didn't show. But if you want to stick around later and see a video to see what horizontal directional drilling is all about, I can do that for you as well. So. Yeah.
Hi, Crystal. Thanks so much to all the folks who are here and to our elected officials. My name's Anna Baldwin, and I'm at 6621. I'm a phase tour, a sad phase tour. I was just wondering if, given that a number of the homes in phase 2 that we've agreed on the backyard alignment, and there's no question that water is going to be in the front. Kind of two questions. One, with the water, given that there are no fire hydrants on the street, why couldn't at least the water update for phase 2 happen sooner with the phase 1?
Well, we mainly just didn't want to impact your neighborhood twice or open cut the streets once and then restore it and then have to come back in whenever the sewer main gets decided.
I would be happy to consult with my neighbors, but I think we would rather have cut up streets more than a lack of fire protection.
The
answer I would provide there is I certainly believe we can take a look at that. I mean, as we go through these options and figure out where we're heading with water and sewer, if that's a possibility, I think Crystal's point, we generally try to do it as one project because you have to mobilize a contractor. It's going to cost more to do two separate projects. However, given the circumstances, if there's a benefit to separating them out and getting the water line done quicker, we would certainly entertain that.
I mean, just speaking from my perspective as a homeowner in that block, we certainly, those of us who have selected the backyard alignment and on phase 2 for the 8 homes, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's an option other than the backyard alignment. But regardless of that, if there's any way to speed up the water, given that the water is going to go in the front anyway, we would strongly support that. Thank you.
I'm not clear after Jean's question what the financial responsibility would be for the homeowners if it is feasible for those of us who could possibly get together and have that front yard gravity alignment with new laterals, just normal plumbing in the front, sewer and water. Are we responsible for a part of it? Is there a budgetary limit? I'm just confused.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, one of the things we talked about back in the meeting earlier this year was that, and I think Crystal referred to this earlier, that the backyard alignment goes with it requirements for easements, and there would be a cost to WSSC to procure those easements. So obviously we have that expense if we go with the backyard. What we had said at the meeting was that we'd look at perhaps transferring those equivalent costs to the front yard option. So for example, we would have to look at if the front yard option was desirable and there were the internal plumbing costs, because that's the real issue here is the house has to be replumbed to fit the front yard option. And there's a cost associated with that. They're not all going to be the same, as I think you figure, depending on the way the house is laid out, depending on the circumstances for each home. So it could be $15,000, it could be $45,000, and I think the approach that we had talked about was that we would certainly be willing to look at offsetting those costs with the cost that we would be paying for the easements, if that makes sense. That's what we talked about.
So there's a $20,000 plus budget for each house to be replumbed to the front, or gravity in the front.
That would be generally, without having done all the numbers and the math and everything, I'd say roughly yes.
But it's a baseline of $20,000 for the easement that you've offered to the individual homeowners, plus whatever features, trees, and other items.
Right, and that's the discussion that we had, and that's what we.
And those are cost factors to remove a tree, to pay the homeowners. These are all factors too that are way beyond $20,000. So these figures could balance because we'll have different budgets for each of the individual houses. So it would be nice if we could have a little bit more clarity around that, because obviously people are going to be scared that they'd have to pay something to have this done out of their own pocket. And it always seems to me that you guys, as the production people, or the people, the project managers, would want to have more control over the plumbers who are chosen to do that internal plumbing. So I know that's very tricky, but it also would just be under more control for you.
Unfortunately, we can't mandate or tell someone what plumber to hire as long as they're a registered WSSC plumber.
But you could give us a pool, and they could be working with you to maintain your schedule, because I can see this being a nightmare for you if we pick our own plumbers and they're not ready when you're ready. So I see it's a huge complicated ball, but if you sort of assisted us in that way, giving us a certain number of references and people that you feel are qualified, and then
well, we have to be careful about giving preferential treatment to anyone. I mean, as long as they're a WSSC registered plumber, they should be capable of doing the work.
And you don't have a list for us to choose from?
We have a list. I mean, the list of registered WSSC plumbers is on our website.
Okay, so there are some references that people can use that you're comfortable with, and the budgets. I mean, another thing that was stated in that meeting was that money is not a concern. That was, Carla Reed said those words. Money is not a concern in this. I have it recorded. Money wasn't a, and I know I don't want to be saying anything in a flippant way or misstating anything that she said, but she said it's not, we want to do a proper job. The money isn't the biggest factor. So if it isn't, if there's individual cost factors which are different, for one house being more expensive than another, if that could be, if people all agreed. So there is that factor as well. But I mean, but not being clear and open about how much money a homeowner would have to pay it's just not a good thing right now,
Pay anything because
yes.
if there is a deficit, let's just say that my easement might be $20,000, just for the sake of argument, and my thing comes in at $25,000. Then the difference, then we would have to know about that, and then we can work with our elected officials or to try to find some grant funding to make up the difference. I just don't want to scare people into that option, thinking they don't have $2,000 to spend on this. So that information, what I'm saying is we can't solve a problem if we can't have the information and be empowered to go forward with it. But it really seemed like the report was biased, definitely pushing people in a certain direction by not providing all the information. If it's a deficit of, say, $75,000, we can work with our elected officials. There are pots of money around to ask for. This is one time. This is one time in our whole lives. It's not like every year or every few years. This is one decision, one time. And I personally, I'll go down to the county council and I'll ask them for the money, because it's 17 houses, one time in a lifetime.
Well, I think so. What I can tell you is we will update the information to better reflect that conversation that we just had, to explain the offset in those costs, and so that, because I agree, people should have the, as much information as possible. So we will make that adjustment.
And one last question: if you are doing the if it goes with the directional drilling in the back, which is a lovely, thank you, compromise to what was proposed last year, are you working on the laterals from the houses then, or is that off the table now? Are the people who are getting the directional drilling in the back, if their laterals are failing, are they getting new laterals, or is that the homeowner's responsibility? I mean, that has gone back and forth many times. I mean, it just is so sort of all new and not entirely clear what all the packages are. And
Right, so for horizontal directional drilling, as with any of the backyard alignments that we've mentioned in the past, we'll be replacing the laterals from the main line up to the edge of our easement, up to the edge of our permanent easement. So we will not be installing new sewer laterals for any of the homes on the backyard alignment.
And some of us have trees in the back, I'm sorry. Some of us still do have trees near our lateral lines, which could be affecting our lateral lines if we continue to keep these mains in the back with our lateral connections. So we still have more tree issues affecting the access to sewer and water if we stay in the back, because we are trying to keep the trees, which have been a problem according to what we've learned from you.
Right, yeah, and actually one of the CCTV photos that I had does show tree rooting as well. So, I mean, it is
So it's not
a known
really
problem.
solving that problem entirely.
Well, within our permanent easement, well,
For the laterals that people own.
Oh.
Yes, for people, in other words, they're not really, there's a
the
nice
laterals will
beauty.
exist as they have in the past.
Right,
yes.
yeah, so there's a nice beauty to the laterals going in the front where they're new and they're not in as many tree-rooted positions. Or,
Well, some of the homes, if we
them.
were to move it around to the side of the homes, I mean, there's no telling that a tree won't grow along that section either.
no, but currently we could probably count how many are going to cause problems, and if we change to where the position of the laterals are, We could do a count. I sort of know my street, so there's not that many on the sides of the houses.
I mean, yeah, you can
There's more
you
in
can
the
use
back.
the sketches that I have online
And that too, thank you
and
for
do a
that.
count.
Yes, they're very
Yeah.
helpful. All right, thank you, thank you.
I'm Elizabeth, and I'm at 6633. The first thing I want to say with your boss here is Crystal has been through this for years with us and very, very responsive, and I'm very thankful for that. So we have seen lots of changing faces, but Crystal has always showed up and responded, and that's been tremendous. One thing we heard, I think the first time when gravity fed was proposed, or whatever, was WSSC would replace the line to the house. They would go as far as they had to get to a workable line.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that's
Right.
still
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, to clarify, yes, we will connect up to the edge of our easement unless we cannot find a piece of pipe that's in good enough shape to connect to, and so we will
And as
go back until
all
we
of
find a
us
good piece.
know, and you guys see all the time, we are right next to DC, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if your timeline has been informed by the construction that will be happening on Big Eastern, by DC of Transportation.
So I've contacted the project manager for DC DOT, and he was telling me that their plans for the roadway won't impact our project at all. So because for this.
For this group, but for the other group, so for,
Yeah, so for the southern section between Kansas and Fifth Avenue, because we're not putting the new mains in the roadway itself, we won't be impacted by the DC DOT project. We're gonna be replacing them, like as I showed in that picture, we're replacing them along the lawns themselves.
as long as you can get your vehicles there, assuming there's construction. I just wanted to make sure.
Well,
that,
yeah, I'm gonna keep in contact with them
Great.
for sure, just to make sure that we have the right vehicle access. So.
Crystal, you mentioned 50% of the trees you hope to save. Can you tell me what would impact the trees? What would impact the trees? if we were to lose more, what would be the reason we would lose more? And you also mentioned the tree protection plan. Can you go over that in detail as well?
Okay, so can you go back to the first part of your question?
Yeah, if there's more than 50% of the trees are lost, why? What would be the reasoning? What
So
would
if we
impact
are-
those trees?
Yeah, so currently we anticipate that we'll be able to save half of the trees from being removed via.
Yeah, we had specific numbers, Chris. didn't
Right, yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
Working number is 18 now, down from 50. I mean, this is just from your own.
From
Right.
39, down from
Right.
39.
Oh,
It
from
was
39
39 to
down
18.
39, so that's about half.
Right.
Right, so that would be saving 21 trees, and, well, you can go into the details.
Right, yeah. Now I've forgotten his question.
Well, his
Oh, yeah,
question
so
is
if we had
how-
more
In
impacts.
other words, right now, we're saying
Mm-hmm.
there's 39, if you even open cut, there's 39 trees that would be impacted. Going to the horizontal directional drill reduces that to 18. That's the current estimate. And then once we would determine detailed plans and actually get out there, depending on where the pits are
Right.
for the entryways that impact those other trees. I mean, and the engineers might be able to speak to this as far as the likelihood of that number might go up or down a couple of,
Right.
a number or two, but maybe you guys could.
I mean, I think I could answer it
speak
too.
to that or Crystal, so.
Yeah, so, and you can jump in if you have anything else to add, Matt. But, yeah, so this is our estimate based on where we propose to put the drilling pits, so the entry pits and the exit pits for the horizontal directional drilling, as well as a 12-foot access road for the vehicles to go up and down the block to create to construct the sewer connections for each home. So that's our estimate right now. However, we don't have the 90% plans yet, and we're contracting a subconsultant to complete the design for horizontal directional drilling. And what we'll find out at the end of their design, at the 90% design stage, we'll figure out whether that access roadway will need to be in a different alignment. We may be able to avoid even more trees. We may impact a few more.
Yeah,
or have
so
to put them
I
on a
think to
protection
answer your
plan.
question, sir, is
Yeah.
it's the difference between having a preliminary
Exactly.
conceptual design versus an actual 100% complete.
And what is the tree protection plan involved?
Right. So the tree protection plan, gosh, I wish that Doug was here. But that's just a typical plan for 5 years after construction for us to hire a contractor to go in and do maintenance on the tree every year. So that may be spraying some kind of, well, I can't tell you exactly actually, because I want to say spraying pesticides, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what they do.
Well, let's note his question.
Right, yeah.
And talk to our arborist
Arborist,
and
yeah.
get back to you with a more specific detail.
But it is a 5-year plan to do maintenance on the tree over 5 years after construction.
I have a real simple question that kind of follows up on 2 speakers earlier. Have you talked to DC Water at all, or DC, so that if you have fire hydrants, we have a very tight parking kind of situation on Little Eastern. Is there a possibility, particularly on the embankment, to put the fire hydrants on the embankment so you'll preserve some of the parking? Not so much where we're at, but further down, it would make a big difference, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, can you help me with this one? I think we put them across the street, didn't we? Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, so that's the answer. Yeah, so on the plans, on our 70% plans and in the future plans, we plan to put the hydrants across the street, so right in front of that wall that's dividing Little Eastern and Big Eastern.
Not in front of the wall. At the wall location, we'll have to put it on.
Yeah, you should just come up and say it.
So at the wall location, we'll have to put the fire hydrants on the side of the street where the houses are, because we can't put them against the wall. There's some areas along further down from the wall where there's just an embankment. In those areas, we can put the fire hydrant in the embankment, is what our plan is, to preserve parking on the house side of the street.
Hi. Just to clarify, so with HDD, what method would you use to complete the sewer house service reconnections?
Those would be installed by excavation, open cut installation.
Okay, so that would still be open cut.
Right.
Okay, and so the preliminary tree impact study that you sent around on Friday, were tree impacts included?
Yes.
The tree
yes.
impacts included in that, so that reflects trees that might have to be cut down to
For the
facilitate.
sewer services, yes.
Okay. Okay, and on a related note, could you maybe kind of go over again, what is the scope of the environmental assessment study that you'll be doing? Specifically, is it limited to the 6700 block, the so-called phase 3, or does it encompass all of the, I guess the entirety of the project?
It encompasses all the addresses for which we're considering the backyard alignment.
For phase 2.
So phase 2 addresses.
So it would include phase 2 as well?
There are
So the
two
address
phases
is at
that we have
phase 2.
planned. There are 2 phases that we have planned. Phase 1 is the southern section, and then the homes on the grinder pump system.
Okay.
And then phase 2 is all the rest of the homes.
Okay,
So,
okay, so that's helpful, but
Mhm.
but only some of those homes would actually have the option, are actually being allowed to revote, isn't that right? I mean, you're not giving the folks who live at, 6617 to 6705 another opportunity to vote.
well, so yeah, so my plan, so we would hope to be able to move forward with the backyard alignment after we get the review from DEP. We hope to get their concurrence. However, if we don't get concurrence from DEP, then we would have to revisit a possible, different alignment or a different construction method for those homeowners as well.
I guess what I'm asking though is why are you allowing the 6700 block to revote? They already voted. They're getting another vote, but
Because
maybe you don't want to vote. But
no, correct. Those
I
of
mean-
us who voted for the backyard and who've had the easements out, we don't want to revote. We want the backyard alignment.
Is that everyone in your group?
Th- yes.
You're
It-
solid?
yes.
No, I just want to know if there's anyone who was left out. So
No.
you guys are solid?
We're solid.
Whatever it is.
We-
Directional drilling in the back.
Directional drilling in the back, we would be happy to do anything we could to help move the process along. Our mains, our neighbors on Westmoreland, in terms of environmental impacts, the environmental impact that's real right now are there are holes in the main and sewage flows downhill. And we're above hill and the sewage is flowing into our neighbors' houses on Westmoreland, into their property. So we would like to get that done as quickly as possible.
well, that's helpful. I mean, I guess the fact that only 2 of the 8 easements documents have been returned, to me it was an open question as to what your position was. But it sounds like you're not interested in a front yard alignment, so you like the easement idea.
There are 3 of us sitting here, and at least 3 of us have returned it. So I'm not sure that it's. We should be in touch to make sure that it's really just.
And I think there was some delay on, to be honest, if you want to
Oh,
know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is 3 alignments, easements signed. I'm sorry.
I think there was also delay on if those easements, if we should be signed, like if they were still going to be valid because there's a lot of things happening. But that little block of people is pretty set to move forward. And back to the other point, obviously that group of people, the way this was originally designed was 3 sections. And we had always been separate, recognizing that there were other options for us because of First Avenue.
Thank you.
Would you guys actually consider the front at all? If gravity in the front could work for you, refunding the houses and it was paid for, would you consider it at all? Because it is a nice option to be like everyone else and have access maintenance in the street and not in your backyards.
Correct me. We will not consider grinder pumps.
No.
So that so I'm just putting, so that, I think the 7 of us or however many are very,
No grinder pumps, this is
That's-
never a discussion of
yeah.
grinder pumps ever again. Okay, this is the 2 options, gravity front or back. Would you consider it to help the people behind you from anything that could happen from the construction?
I think we would consider doing whatever is going to move the project along most quickly. And if it seems like it's going to continue bogging down and it's not clear about the costs, if it were a clean here's a timeline for A and here's a timeline for B. I mean, I don't think we're ideologically committed to backyard sewers. We're committed to moving this along expeditiously and like having a functional main.
Okay, so we need to sort out the budgetary questions that we had about doing it in the front and any other jam-ups with addressing having people's houses replumbed, because they're open, they're not closed.
We are cautious about additional delay, and what is most important to us is moving the project forward. And so if it's like additional studies and like the budgetary things bogged down, then, you know, so I don't want to, I think for a number of us, our highest priority is to move the project along.
And, I mean, we had.
Just to be clear, can you confirm that WSSC agreed in July 2016 to conduct an environmental impact study, and that has not happened yet. So it's not anybody on our street that's dragging their feet. It's just we don't have the information to make the decision. And there are people on Westmoreland on our side. I can't speak for there's some down, there's quite a few down you, but I won't speak for them, that are really, really concerned about the backyard option there. And we don't have the information to make an informed decision. And we don't want to throw our neighbors under the bus. And we don't want them throwing us under the bus. So that's why tonight, at this hour, we don't have enough information, but there's enough serious concern about the backyard options and other options have not been fully explored. Grinder pumps are not coming back on the table. I don't think any of us would allow that.
Rushing water that you can hear on Westmoreland. So some of the concerns by Diane, who is a landscaper, that there could be issues for our neighbors who already have sump pumps. I mean, is there going to be, a giant sump pump? I mean, how are they going to keep the water out of their basements?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I've also seen sewage running down the hill. And so like, that is we've got to get the correct resolution quickly, because we literally have sewage running down First Street sometimes. I've seen it. And yeah, that was then. But it was also down in the area that was very close to the main. So, you know.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
No, I don't want it either. I have a dog in my backyard.
I do, but I don't want to interrupt them if they're talking. So,
House, whatever. Yeah, or children, I know.
although they're not really at the microphone, but. Thanks for that. And just to follow up, with respect to the environmental assessment, who is conducting that?
So we're going to be, our design consultant is going to be putting together the assessment report, and we've gotten the criteria for the report from the Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection. They emailed us exactly what they want to see, and so we're going to put together that report for their review. So.
And who is your design consultant?
Our design consultant is Wilson T. Ballard, the Wilson T. Ballard Company.
Okay. We've heard of them. And as part of the study, will you be taking any new boring samples?
No, we won't be taking any new boring samples.
And why is that?
We have existing borings, and the soil isn't changing. The geotechnical work that we have already is not changing, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
why don't you take the mic?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
go
should
ahead.
come
Why
up
don't
and
you?
answer this. Or, yeah, there.
So we have some existing core samples, and those they haven't changed. It's not something that changes over the past 5 to 10 years. It's hundreds of years of changing for that. So there's not really a need to disturb the environment, getting large trucks out there, getting ATVs, bringing in these coring machines, and doing more of this work.
Okay, well that's helpful. I would note though that the boring samples that you took back in 2011, they were all pretty far from the affected area on Westmoreland. In particular, the properties that would be closest to the area where we know there's a spring, around 6604 Westmoreland. you could have taken a sample at 6610, which is only 3 houses away, and as you know, the houses on that street are very close, and that would have given you a much more accurate sense as to, you know, what the groundwater infiltration rate was at the location that's actually close to where we know there is an aquifer problem. And I don't understand why you won't agree to do that as part of this environmental assessment, because if you won't, then the boring samples that you're relying on are literally like more than a block away from the area where we know there is an aquifer. So by definition, they're not going to be relevant. They're not going to tell you the true state of where that groundwater is. And since you premise a lot of your conclusions in the hydrology report on the results of the boring samples, I mean, for those conclusions to be valid, they have to be relevant. They have to be relevant to the area that you're examining, and I submit they're not.
Well, we'll have that discussion with our consultant and take your comment and perhaps take another look at that. So.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to do so, because as you may know, you may remember last July, Elizabeth Finley, who lives at 6604 Westmoreland, provided some very kind of vivid examples of the water. She's continued to have problems this year. And I live at 6612 Westmoreland, and we have water in our basement as well. So it's not to the level that Elizabeth has. You know, I feel very bad for her, but this is a problem that we currently deal with. And so, I mean, I think if you're going to base conclusions on a study, you need the study to analyze the relevant location, and I submit you haven't done that yet.
Well, we appreciate your comment. We will take that under advisement with our consultant, and if we need to amend the scope, we'll look at that.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. Looks like maybe I'll just continue here.
Carry on.
For the preliminary tree impact study that you performed, how did you calculate the critical root zone for the affected trees?
There is a predetermined critical root zone list for sizes of trees that's been put out by they've changed their name recently, but it was the National Arborist Association, as well as a couple other arborist groups and environmental groups. So we use that and the diameter of the tree to calculate a rough critical root zone.
Okay. So did you use the Maryland Department of Natural Resources guidelines? Because that's the standard of care in Maryland.
I will have to look into that and see what our guidelines match up to. I believe it's probably the same, but I will check it out.
Okay. I'd appreciate your following up on that. I believe if a tree has a diameter or breast height that's 30 inches or greater, what you do is it's 1.5. You multiply the dBH by 1.5, and that gives you the critical root zone. From my preliminary look at the preliminary tree impact study, my sense is that you're not following the DNR guidelines, and therefore you're understating the tree impacts of the HDT approach. So I'd ask you to take another look at that, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely will.
I just wanted to add something about the hydrology study. I think the reason that you don't have for the block where he lives, closer, sorry. I think the reason is that hydrology study was done originally, long before your time, sorry, Crystal. It was my block from first to Walnut. That was the study. We were the first group that was going to, with directional drilling, and I think that's when they did the core samples. And so they were only going from First to Walnut, where he's speaking about where the aquifer is. The reason that it may never have been done is it was long after, you know, you included them after our original group, if that makes sense, sorry.
Right.
Okay, I think that's why there's no core samples, where it would be more critical where the aquifer is.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions this evening? Comments?
Sorry, one more. Where those big pits are for where the big pits are for the directional drilling in the back, have you talked to the people who may be impacted by those pits on Westmoreland as well as Eastern Avenue? I'm assuming you got permission for those well, there's only one that you probably need homeowner permission for, right? The
Right.
end for us.
So
right?
currently our drilling pits are located within the 20-foot easement that we're proposing.
Oh, Okay, so, okay. But still, they're going to be deeper than the directional drilling, so people will be affected maybe more so by the depth of those pits? I mean, we haven't seen how deep you have to go to. Your description earlier, or at least at one point, was they were massive machines and you needed to dig deep to place them or something like that. So I only have an imaginary idea.
Right. Yeah. So
I'd
currently,
like that.
currently the pits are planned to be within our 20-foot easement. But as you mentioned, the vehicles needed for HDD and even just the pit placement themselves, they won't be finalized until we get our HDD design consultant or sub-consultant on board to complete the design. So that's part of that environment. That's why I said environmental assessment as well as construction impact report, because once we get the HDD designer on board and they are able to produce those 90% plans, we'll have a clearer picture of what the construction impacts and what the environmental impacts are going to look like. So we haven't.
May suffer more than others with the HDD as well.
They may. Some people, well, I wouldn't say suffer, but some people may require additional temporary construction strips or construction easements that are temporary. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, can you put the criteria for the environment, the points, the content of this environmental assessment? You said it's come. You got instructions from the Montgomery County Office of Environmental Protection on what they wanted to see. Can you share that? What aspects it's going to be looked at, so that everybody knows what you're going to be studying and what you're not going to be studying?
Sure. Yeah, I can provide that.
Okay. Thank you. We have a retaining wall that is behind our house, but that keeps my backyard from sliding into Westmoreland's house behind us, and I believe it's a rental. So I have not seen the owner, who I think is still the owner of that property. And I know we've lived here almost 31 years, and so it's old, and I'm not sure. If in your plans, in your specifications, if you have noted that that wall is there, and then the heavy equipment that has to go back and forth to put the line in, whether that will be assessed for damage. I know before when we've talked about it, you said it would be rebuilt, but is that actually in the contract that you have with whoever would do that, any of those retaining walls? And I think our wall, Kevin, do you remember how it is? I think it's about 3 or 4 feet high. It might be higher than that. That is keeping literally the soil from my backyard from ending up in the Westmoreland's dining room.
Right. Yeah, and we can address those impacts to individual structures on individual properties in that construction impact report as well. But it is typical that our contractors, if they disturb any retaining walls, if they disturb any fences, if they disturb landscaping, that they have to restore everything in kind at the end of construction.
Are strong records kept, so say 5 years down the line, the neighbors start complaining about this wall crumbling and stuff coming down? We could just tell them to call WSSC and they'll take care of it?
They'll be legally liable for anything that starts coming down the
I believe they will. Yeah, so our contractor, they will take pre-construction photographs of the entire site so that they can restore it exactly in kind. So if you see any impacts where after construction things are not as they seem before, then we will have a way to compare how things existed before construction and then how they existed after. And we would hold our contractor responsible for those damages.
If you start directional drilling and it gets stuck somehow, is open pit back on the table then for those sections?
I'm sorry.
If you start directional drilling and you get stuck, unable to continue in a certain section, will you have to open it up and do a pit?
Yes, that is what would happen.
And will that be within the 20-foot easement, or are you going to have to get a larger temporary easement to accommodate?
I mean, we would do it within the 20-foot easement. If we need to get additional space, then we would have to get that signed permission from the property owner.
What's the likelihood that you're going to get stuck onto directional drilling?
It's just not likely with the soil conditions that are out there right now. We don't have any record of there being like bedrock or anything.
I just wanted to know if you had any indication where those pipes were broken, the pictures that you showed us, the broken pipes. Do you know where they are? Just out of curiosity.
So actually the photos that I had in my presentation we're closer to 67, 61, like at the top of the block. However, there are lots of instances throughout the CCTV video. I mean,
where it's
The
happening.
tapes should be able to identify
Yeah.
where along the alignment.
Definitely.
Because people are complaining, so I'd like to know where that is and if there's
Right.
anything you can do before the construction to, you know, if the mains are leaking, is there anything you can do to help these people out with the sewage in their backyard?
Yeah, we can definitely have our utility services team look at the CCTV footage, pinpoint any areas where a major break has occurred. And if you're curious about what the main looks like at your property in particular, you can.
Well, I'm
Figure
okay,
it out.
but I don't have children and whatever. And then I know we keep skipping the trees in the front. Do you have a total for how many trees will have to be removed in the front for the water?
I do not know off the top of my head, but it'll definitely be part of that environmental impact
Okay.
for all.
Because
all
there
30
was, you have a number? No.
If it goes to that, we won't be able to determine it until we determine where the sewer is actually in the house.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking about right now with the water main. Obviously, they could be further damaged if we put both lines in the front. I understand that, but those trees also are currently possibly going to be damaged by the construction in the front. And because originally it was close to 50 trees, and that was with the total for the front and the back. So now we're at, what was it,
39.
39.
That's for the
Yeah.
back.
Right, but that's only in the back. That's
Right,
not
that's the
including,
backyard.
so if we're at 17, so it looks like something like 11 in the front. So it's really a total of 28 trees which will be removed. If you include the ones in the front. I think. I mean, if it was about, I'm
Sure.
doing sloppy math, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
literally at least 10 more in our front that's going to need to be removed
Right.
for the water line. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
We've got some mulberries you can have.
Oh, it's not, yes, it's not the mulberries. You can have the mulberries.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Bill Brown from 6704 Westmoreland Avenue. And you were talking about the efficiency of doing the front and the back at the same time, if it comes to that. And I just wanted to point out that for the people who live in the community, that would not be so great, because you would have, especially those on Eastern, you'd have construction in the front and construction in the back going on at the same time. They're very, very clamorous, especially if people, there are a lot of people around our neighborhood who work at home. That'd be very, not a very good arrangement. So I would urge you to think about doing the water first. I wonder if you could remind us if you put a right-of-way through the backyards, what the restrictions on homeowners would be, how they can use their own property in the back?
Right. For a permanent easement, the only restriction is that you cannot build a permanent structure within the easement. So movable sheds and fences are fine in the area. However, if we need to come in and do maintenance, we will have to remove that section of the fencing while we do construction, but it can be put back in place afterwards.
Okay, and that's 20 feet wide?
20 feet wide
20 feet
from the
wide,
rear
okay.
of the property.
And it's right to the 20-foot line that you can build?
Right.
Okay.
That's
And what is the impact on property values of those restrictions?
I am not sure. I'll have to get back to you.
Okay. I moved to that neighborhood about 35 years ago, and it was sort of known that the water was in the back, but it wasn't very clear to anyone observing it, because the pipes, or the access pipes, were covered with leaves, and people had built, and it had been that way. I mean, it had gone in, I think, in the 20s or 30s. And in the 35 years that I've lived there, a lot of people have built on top of that space and put fences through, and as you know, trees have grown up. So I'd like to know, what is your long-term plan for the next 80 years to make sure that that stays clear? Because we've had workmen in there in the last 35 years, and nobody did anything to clear the area to make it obvious that that was a place where the pipes were. So what is your plan?
I mean, I would say that probably the reason why it hasn't been cleared back there in the past is because we didn't have a permanent easement at all. So we were able to go in and do repairs on the mains, the water and the sewer, on the basis of an emergency. However, we didn't have a claim to clearing out the land for our utility.
When we purchased that house 35 years ago, we were told there's a right of way.
Yep, we were told also, but I know you've looked, Hala looked for it, and the records don't exist at WSSC, but we were told when we bought in 1986 that there was a 10-foot easement back there. So we knew that you have that already, but you don't have paperwork to prove it.
Yeah, so I guess our plan this time around is to have the paperwork.
Okay, so he's 2 doors down from us, so he was told there was an easement there. Somebody asked a question about taxes. Okay, so the last time we got into this discussion about the compensation, the permanent easements, the discussions were somewhere around, I don't know, $6 a square foot, and that's a one-time payment. Neighbor who's not here today and I got together and we figured out what we're paying taxes on now. And we're paying taxes on somewhere between $45 and $55 a square foot, depending, on the value of your house, et cetera. It's my understanding that the county and the state are still going to expect us to pay those taxes on those diminished value properties afterwards. Do you have any experience with easements of whether the homeowner still pays the same property tax rate? And we have very high property taxes. Takoma Park is exceptionally high property taxes because we also have city taxes. Whether it seems like it's a given that we have to keep paying the full amount of taxes on the part that we've given the easement on.
Right. Unfortunately, our property acquisition agent isn't here today.
Yeah, I don't know that any of us, I can't answer that question, but we will certainly get an answer for you. I don't know, I'm not sure, Karen, if you know, but we will, the answer, or the questions that we haven't been able to answer, we're documenting and we'll provide written responses back for you. So are there any other comments? If not, I just want to again thank everyone for coming here. Folks that have commented on Crystal, really appreciate that. We appreciate your time here. I know she's been working at this for quite a while, and we really want to make this project a reality. I think the person who spoke about the environmental impacts, that's what we're really concerned about as well. As we've got a failing sewer. I mean, we have aging infrastructure throughout the 2 counties that we're replacing. We have millions of dollars in our budgets to replace and repair pipes all throughout the 2 counties because of the age of the infrastructure. And of course, this is a very old part of the system and an old community. So we're very sensitive to trying to build this project, and obviously we'll never get it with no impacts, but try to minimize the impacts to your community. But also understanding that we have to get in there and fix these pipes, because the alternative is not very good. If we have bigger failures in your neighborhood, then it's going to create a very bad environmental situation. So we really appreciate everybody's participation here. We'll be working towards a schedule, working with the mayor and our other elected officials to continue to push this project forward. So thank you all. Again, we really appreciate you. A lot of great comments. As I said, we don't have everyone here to answer all those questions, but we could certainly take back the questions we couldn't answer. Crystal will provide the updated information to the things that we mentioned on your public web page. And again, if there's still comments or questions, I'm happy to bring our staff to your home. You can come to our office, whatever is most convenient. If you want to have a one-on-one discussion about anything in particular on the project, we're happy to do that. And with that, I'll again thank you, and everyone have a great evening.